what is my favorite moment at Valve? That was something someone asked the other day, and I made a TikTok about it, but it was really quick and rushed, and I thought I would just do a slower, kind of longer one here. So this is my favorite moment, not my favorite thing I did. Like long-term projects and stuff like Left 4 Dead was the most interesting and probably my favorite thing I did. But like favorite moment, what was that moment? It was like, let's say an hour. And I think that'd be a little bit surprising for some people that it's not a game. Now, this is gonna be a little bit long because you gotta get there of why this is my favorite moment. And it's about VR. So prior to working on VR, I had gotten one test of it in Left 4 Dead where it was like DK2 level, and I just got sick and thought it was horrible and wasn't really interested. But I was working on Source 2, and I was working on making this companion that could scan the world and understand objects and pathing and tell you like where to go and cross the bridge over there and stuff. It was cool. And I knew that as I did this check-in one night, that this is going to be the last check-in I do on this, and this will never see the light of day. And you'll never see that because I think they totally removed all the squirrel stuff from it and everything, and so it's not even there. But it was experiments. We were learning. Like, there's value in doing it. But I wanted to ship. I wanted to put things into people's hands. And I was just at this low moment at Valve of like, what now? And then Michael Abrash and Doug Church were like, hey, come down to VR. Because I talked to Doug Church a lot. I used to drive him home from work because if I took him in the car, I was able to take the express lane. And that meant even going out of the way to drop him off at home was quicker than just driving myself. And then I got to hang out with Doug. Doug's super smart, super creative guy. So they bring me down and I see the VR demo. Now, this is the VR demo where it's the room where you have like the tags on the wall, right? The tag rooms. And this is really early days, but it's the first time when you move your head, it's not like mobile VR, right? With mobile VR, if you move your head, it doesn't make a difference. You're just a camera in a fixed point in a 3D space. Where this was the first time you move your head, it's reflected and you see yourself moving in a 3D space. And I see the demo, and I remember I get to the second room and it's like these giant spirals go off to infinity. And I'm just like, hold on, just stay here for a bit. And I'm thinking about like how much I try to make games about immersion and putting players in their space and having this feelings around like being overwhelmed and everything else. And here was this technology just handing it to me for free. And I was amazed. But I do not know VR. I do not know technology. So I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'll do, but I'll move down here with you guys. So I moved down and we're like, well, let's go. First of all, sit in this demo room and just don't say anything. I just listen. I just listen to other people give demos and hear how people talk about VR, hear how the people giving the demos talk about the VR, hear how people respond to it and talk about it and process it and start coming up with words. Because it's always like, how do you describe this word? How do you describe proprioception? Well, proprioception is the idea that you know where your hand is in 3D space, right? It's like an extension of your body, but it's in the digital. And I would try to like summarize these words and then share them with the engineers. And they'd be like, yeah, no, you have to give this whole giant 3-page description. I'm like, no. That's not how humans consume information. They do it in smaller chunks. So I'm doing that. And then they're like, well, also go talk to other VR devs. So I'm going out and I'm visiting other VR devs. I remember seeing like Denny from Cloudhead Games, super smart, super smart dude. But like, there's no focus yet. Like, I'm just talking with people. I meet Vertigo Games early on when they're doing their diving game. And it's all like, I don't know, like, I'm just talking with people and just trying to feel out like, who do I like working with? We don't know how we're going to work on VR yet, because at this point it's going to be like, is this going to be a hobbyist thing we just prop up and push forward? Are we going to give the technology to somebody else to make? At this point, there's a tag room at Valve and there's a tag room that Valve made at Oculus. And so those are the two places that you could see real quote unquote VR. And so we're working on this and we're showing it, but we don't really know what we're doing. We actually show it at a Steam Dev Days thing, but it's the tag room, right? Don't really know what we're doing. And then me and Doug, people are like, well, hey, we should share this with Hollywood. A lot of Hollywood interest in it, but the people want to come up to Seattle. So let's go down there and show it. But how do you show it in a tag room? Well, you got to find the worst office in LA. So me and Doug literally go down to LA looking for the worst office. We're like, no windows, no shiny objects, plain walls. Like, it just took us forever. So we're finding it. But we still don't know what quite we're going to do with this besides share it. And then the news comes that Oculus is going to buy, or Facebook is going to buy Oculus for $2 billion. And Gabe's like, hey, this is just going to destroy the ecosystem. It's not going to come up naturally. Instead, this is going to overcharge people trying to sell you VR. And it's going to infuse a bunch of money on that side, where the buying side, the people who want VR, won't exist yet and won't be able to match it. And so it'll be an imbalance, and it's going to be like what it is. It's a hard problem. It's a hard situation. So Gabe's like, yeah, our approach isn't going to work here. We should get out of this. We find that out the day we're shipping stuff down to that office in LA. I'm actually in San Francisco with my nephew, and I have to call up and just cancel what I can. And then this rest gets sent to this office that we cancel out of. I hang out with my nephew for the weekend instead of going to LA, and come up, and we kind of had this really, really kind of downer meeting at Valve where we're just like, well, let's just release all this for free and just, I don't know. And it sucks because there's people in the VR team who had worked there for a while, had worked on this, who are really smart, really passionate about it. But that was going to be it. And then someone's covered this before. I honestly wasn't part of this. I don't know how HTC actually met us to begin with. I just remember the first meeting with them. People brought me into it. And I was just like, well, they're smart. This could work. Yeah, I'll help with this. And so then what does that mean? I do not know yet. And so we have one guy who's kind of leading up the hardware side of it. No longer at Valve, so I'm not going to mention, but a really good guy. But he's kind of heading up the hardware side of it. But like, what's going to go on this HTC unit? Well, I've been meeting with a lot of developers, but I can't do this alone. So I team up with one of the business people, Gus. And so Gus and I will do this together. We will do the software side. And so we kind of get the list of everybody I've been talking with. And some of these people are like, hey, these people get paid by Oculus. You shouldn't work with them. I'm like, no. Everybody's working with everybody right now. That's okay. This is about working together. This is about moving together what VR is. That's okay. Like, unhinge yourself from being Valve focused and be VR focused for a moment. And that's okay. And so we come up with a list, and we actually send them NDAs. Now, at this point, the only people that I'm pretty sure know something is up is Google. Because at one point, I really liked the idea of Google Earth in VR. And we kind of set up a tag room down on the Google campus. But it's not on the Google campus. It's like alongside the Google campus. It's like the house reminds me of the Brady Bunch house is what I call it. It's like one room in the Brady Bunch house is got the tag room. And there's some people working in there. But it's like one of the people from Google Earth is really passionate and excited about it. And we're like, this is cool. Okay. We'll invite them. We'll invite these other devs I'm coming up with, but we're all going to make them sign an NDA first. And the NDA is to sign an NDA that the next NDA is HTC Vive or HTC. And so we do that. They come up in October and we're like, hey, so we're working with HTC. We don't have anything to show you yet. We will have something to show you in December. We're going to show this in March at GDC. But it'll all work out. Yeah. And so there's a couple people who can't do it because they're like in Unreal 3 and that's not supported. We've got Unity support. Julie Hyde was a big proponent of VR, and then she helped me bring in like everybody from Unity to come see it, including like the CTO and stuff. And they got excited about it. We had Google excited about it. I also had this one weird moment with Google where they came up for a meeting in between these and trying to figure out how to work together as a company. And it's always like these big companies are trying to figure out Valve a little bit and how it works. And they're like, who are we talking to? So I thought somebody else was in charge of this meeting, and I just show up to this meeting and I realize I'm in charge of this meeting and I have to do all the talking, which is like, oh, okay. But then I excuse myself, go to the restroom, and one of the guys comes in the restroom. He's like, hey, are you Chuck from Old Man Murray? I'm like, all right, this will work out. It's a weird world. And so they're excited about it. Like we have some other people excited about it. Uni's excited about it. Unreal and Epic are excited about it, but they only have Nick Whitting. Anybody who worked on VR and used Unreal knows Nick. Nick is a savior and a great guy. He's now since left Epic, but he did all the work and he was absolutely great. I'm sure there's other people, but it's gonna be Nick Whitting for me forever. Okay, so yes, they're on board. We're gonna do this. And we're going to go and start giving you units in December. When I say give you units, it really means Chet's going to show up at your door with a unit, me and Doug Church. So Gus and I are kind of organizing of how we're going to do this and like what our expectations are out of this and what people should make and kind of think about it. And so during this, I have my wife come in and see the VR demo. And I want to show it to her because I'm like, hey, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be gone from now until March. And this is going to impact our lives a great deal. But I also think, and this isn't like ego, but this is just understanding of what's going on. I'm going to have a bigger influence on the rise of this technology than anything I'll ever have in my life. I will be able to help this launch in a way that I will never have this much impact again in my life. It's not a game. It's something else. I want to work on this. And so she saw it. She's an artist. She was blown away by it. It was funny because, don't tell her I said this. She has a little bit of vertigo. And so the opening scene is you're in a room that is just Yahoo web page, news page. Oddly enough, the day Facebook went public. But it's fake as can be. And there's a kind of tower in the middle and you have to step off of it. And it's just scary to step off of it. And some people can't. She couldn't. But she was just blown away by it. Later when I'm showing that demo to this one Viking guy, this big Viking guy, he cannot step off. He is terrified of stepping off. He is mad at me that I'm bringing this up to him. And then later there's this part of the demo where he thinks it's coming up again. He lifts up his head and he's just like, he's going to me up if this is what it's about. If I'm going to embarrass him again, I'm like, no, it's cool, dude. It's cool. But so some people really buy into it, right? And it's fun. And so she's like, yeah. And I'm like, so the other thing we're going to do though is we're not going to have violence in the demos. This was a purposeful choice that Gus and I had made, that we are going to have art, we're going to have activity, we're going to show all these other things because we want everything to be positive. We want everything to be a forward-going energy. We don't want anyone to be like, oh, I don't like guns, or oh my God, gore abroad, wow, violence now. Like none of those kind of articles can be written. It's all just going to be positive, all going to be good, right? And this is how we're thinking about it. And so this is what we're working with. So we have no headset. You may see if you go back and look at the Valve thing, like there's collaborated together headsets that like look like you would make in the basement where you take essentially the screen of a smartphone and staple it in together with some other stuff. And like, it is just a nightmare. But like, we don't even have the lighthouses working yet. And it's getting later. And so it is December 8th. And I'm going to go on a trip with Doug Church to Europe, UK, and then Europe. And nothing works yet. So either we are going on a vacation or everything's going to be working by the time we land. So everything was working by the time we land. We first went to Boston Studios. We went to a bunch of the different studios that are in those opening demos. We sent up the kits to the Alchemy team, the job sim people. They were up in Canada, being Canadian. Oh, they're not all Canadian. Only one of them is. But they were running with it. I invited the team from Skillman and Hackett who would do Tilt Brush into our offices. Because again, my whole thing was like, we should just be sharing. We should be learning from each other. We could be learning from as much from them as they from us. And so I started this thing where we just always have people in the office as much as I can get people in. But we were still out there and we were setting up. And I still remember, I guess it was pretty high on a list of things, not having eaten like in a day and a half, going to deliver the kit to, oh my God, come on. I said their name earlier. Vertigo Games. And walking down the street with we're just walking down the street with these kits and these suitcases filled with technology, and they're making apple hand pies, and they smelled so good. And that apple hand pie was probably the highlight of the trip. But we drop off the kit at Vertigo Games, and I remember Vertigo Games because within 15 minutes of dropping off the kit, they had it set up and they had something working in it. Now they already had Arizona Sunshine as well, but we were like, let's not do that thing yet. Let's do this other thing. And we were all kind of working together. And so like, it's me talking to like the business people and being like, no, do this. And Doug talking and setting up the technology and everything else with the people who are going to use it. Occasionally I would have to do that later in trips, but right now it's, we're kind of trying to split up a little bit and talking and including both. And Doug's, again, super creative, super just idea generative to everybody doing this and things to think about. And it was great. Like he had big influence on those early experiences. So now, you don't have a lot of time there. GDC is 3 months away and we're still just delivering kits. So we tell everybody though, hey, you have to have your experience perfect because there's gonna be nobody in the room. They're just gonna be getting these demos one after another. You've got to be perfect. And so that's how they're working on it. And we're going a lot of back and forth with them, again, trying to bring them in. I'm going out to visit. Doug's going out to visit. Like, we're all just trying to just get this going as quick as we can, as best as we can, now that we have headsets to give them, right, that work. And these headsets are, when HEC does their first, like, hey, let's see if this line can build a headset, it builds a test of 100. And that's what we sent out. And they're a little janky, right? Because they're janky. And at this point, everything's still wired. So at one point, we have this problem. We have wired controllers. Well, where do those wires go? Because they can't go back to the computer to the USB. So instead, we put a USB hub on your hip. And that gets plugged in. And then everything plugs into that. And Monty comes up with a belt to put around you. Like this weird little belt that you have to step into. Call it the full Monty. I was sure later when this would come out that everyone would just talk about the full Monty. Because it was so ridiculous. No one ever did. But I was just sure, like, oh, this is so janky. Man, we're just so janky. We have these sombreros. They're all wired. The wireless isn't going to come in time. Like, this is all just so janky. And people are having problems with their kits. They're having problems getting going on. Oh, we have this guy, Vince, who's doing all of our shipping. And the minute you have a problem with any of your equipment, we instantly send you a new one. Because we are so worried that if, like, the button's broken, you're just going to design around that. And you're not going to use the button. So we want to make sure everything's working. And the button was always kind of janky. All right, we are super reactive, and that's all Vince. Gus has helped organizing all of that, and we're looking and going, all right, so we have all these demos coming in. Should we just do one big long demo? But here's the problem is then what if one of them doesn't hit? What if them doesn't work? So instead we're going to do 3 demo tracks. Everything starts with Wii VR. Everything's going to have tilt brush in it, and everything's going to have the Valve stuff at the end. Now remember, the Valve stuff at the end, I've talked about this, where the GLaDOS thing, Source 2, we can't do look-ats. I don't know, every engineer is going to lose their effing mind of it is just looking at a vector in space. It is super easy to do. Everyone can do it. Yeah, shut up. It didn't work, right? Like, again, I'm just seeing this jank as we're working among this, but yet stuff's working so well and so cool. But I'm worried about this and I'm thinking about, like, you know, what's this going to present and how this is going to look. And so we're getting closer to GDC and GDC's like, hey, we don't have a space for you. So I have to go down to GDC. And if you remember, for a few years, Valve was under the stairs. That was me. Because normally you're on the show floor and, like, I remember Epic built this whole big thing and it was crazy, but, like, you're still on the show floor and you still feel that energy. We wanted to remove you from that. We wanted to make it quiet because we were going to be showing Source 2 stuff, Steam Deck, not Steam Deck, Steam Machine, and the Vive. I think it was named at that point. Yeah, it was. And so we were going to be doing kind of all of that together, and we had to have a place to go do all of that. So I wanted to have a room where we had enough room. We could just control the whole space, control the lights, the heating, everything. So I got that spot, and that room was beautifully built out by one of the people at Valve, Chris Chin, who's also a level designer, was also a licensed architect. So he actually could make, like, the best room, and it was a beautiful room. And so we had this thing set up, and it was going to be EJ, Eric Wolpaw, and Gabe. We're going to be showing these 3 things. Like, we take them through, everyone get a VR demo, then they'd get the Steam Machine demo, or they'd get the Steam Machine demo for them, and they'd get talked about Source. There may have been something else in there. I honestly, with all this, if I have dates a little bit wrong or whatever, this is off the top of my head of my memory. But, you know, it was real. I was there. So, okay, we have this set up and going. And I remember Gabe being frustrated with the Steam Machine kind of set up and kind of thing. And we had some people come in and kind of get some of the demos. I remember at one point, him turning to me and Doug Lombardi and being kind of like, how can you 2 idiots do this, but nobody else can? Meaning, present things, talk to them, tell a story that has a beginning, middle, and end so that you want to use it. Like, right, all of this stuff. And it's like, yeah, me and Doug have weird skills that don't fit in with the rest of the engineers, but okay. And Gabe, of course, when I say that, he's saying that in a loving way, right? But so, okay. We're getting closer. And what's going to happen is we're going to go to Mobile World Congress first. And then we're going to go to Mobile World Congress is actually going to show the VR demos first, but they can't talk about them until that first day of GDC. And then at noon, the first day of GDC, everybody's embargoes lifts and everybody can talk about it. And we're just working away on this. And again, I'm just bouncing around the world at this point. And so I go to Mobile World Congress because we're going to do some press with HTC there. And it's kind of going to be the reveal for the first time with press. Now, I want to go do it because I want to see how they react so that I can understand if we should change anything, how we talk about it and how we're going to present it. And so a couple of things happen. Is one, Doug Church comes as well, and he's going to set up in the demo room and give the demos at Mobile World Congress. We have a problem. The internet at Mobile World Congress sucks, and Google Earth needs internet. And I'm really worried if we put people in where they're losing internet in and out, they may get nauseous. And I don't want to put that in the middle of the demo. So me and Gus decide to cut it. If you ever wonder like how decisions get made at Valve, that is two people going, here's why we think we should cut this. What does everyone else think? And everyone else is like, if you guys are willing to go talk to Google, sure, we agree with you. But like there's going to be blowback from this. So, okay, just do it. I'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. And so I'm at Mobile World Congress, and I remember at one point, like, first of all, people gasp when Valve's involved, which is kind of fun. But the HTC person wanted to start giving them statistics about it. They wanted to give them screen resolution and all this. I'm like, no. This is magic, right? We've already told all of our engineers that when you give a demo, you're not allowed to sit with the people like you normally do afterwards. Normally there's a big debrief and everybody talking about technology and how it all works. We're not going to do that with the press. We're going to do a demo, and then we're going to throw them out the door, and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to expose like how the magic happens. They're just going to have to process it and use their own words to talk about it. Now, again, there's other people we've done demos with. Like through all of this process, we're working with Sony really closely and going back and forth with them and sharing technology back and forth and talking about this a lot. Shu over there is just really smart and also just a really great attitude about like, this is nascent technology. Let's just share. Let's always have open communication and talk back and forth and help each other and never look at this as enemies, right? And just always kind of that attitude. Now, that served, I think, both companies well. But okay. But so we're at Mobile World Congress, and I want to see Barcelona. I've never seen Barcelona. I have like 15 minutes at Barcelona and getting some tapas, which was amazing. It was good. We'd later come back to Barcelona as well a couple times, but like I really like Barcelona. But I'm not able to really see the city because we are doing these press things and they're weird. And it's getting a little antsy with HTC in a way because I'm like, do not say the resolution. Do not do that. Do not fall that trap because then the experience is about how does our resolution stack up to Oculus, where Oculus is showing still the mobile stuff. They're not showing the head movement. You can't track the head. They don't have controllers. They have none of that. So the experience is radically different. The resolution doesn't make a difference. All right. So I don't ever get to see anyone get a demo because I've got to leave and I've got to go to GDC. So I fly from Barcelona to San Francisco. I have a day off there and I'm walking around in the city just trying to clear my head. And I run into a bunch of Oculus people who have now started to hear some rumblings. They don't know exactly what. One of them is even asking, like, have you solved controllers? Not really talking about it yet, right? And so we go another day and we start setting up. And it's going really poorly. Well, so first there's like the big day of setup, which is like the big physical room. And then there's the calibration, the VR and all of that. It's just going really poorly. It's going really poorly. Nothing's working right. There's interference. There's just a nightmare. And the whole thing is Doug Church, meanwhile, who's giving demos in Mobile World Congress and did this setup in Mobile World Congress, is emailing back and talking to everybody at Valve of like just all the problems and all the nightmares. And like he's coming off as sounding super negative because he's trying to stress of like, no, we need to solve these things. You need to get these going. And it's just like overwhelming me of like all this negativity of what's happening. And I remember being in the room and one of the engineers being like, we need to recalibrate all of this. All of these are off. And I'm just like, I'm not helping anybody here. And at this point, I'm just going to lose my mind. It very much kind of feels like today, Tuesday, election day. So I walk away and I'm trying to get a little bit of sleep. Can't sleep. Friend calls and is like, hey, we're going out to a bar. Why don't you come out with us? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I still have a memento from that because I was sitting there and she got a drink that was came with a bottle opener. That was a big bottle opener from Jameson. But you don't open whiskey that way, but whatever. Okay. And I'm just realizing I'm bad company. I'm just bad company, right? I'm anxiety. I don't really feel like having a drink because I have a big day tomorrow. I have like one drink. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go walk back to my hotel. It's a couple of miles. I walk. I'm just going to go walk back. So there's an Australian guy who at this point is mystical to me if he really exists or not. If you are that person, let me know. But they walk back with me to the hotel. And we're walking back. And it's like, San Francisco at, I don't know, midnight or whatever. Some places nicer than others. And so we're walking back. And we're not even talking about the VR. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about stuff and making games and that kind of thing. I can't even really remember what we were talking about. But somewhere during that talk, it clicks in my head that I'm used to seeing VR now at this level. What we are showing people has never been seen before. Having the hands in the space, having your head tracking the movement, all this is all brand new, all crazy. And I get to see it at the Valve offices where it's tuned. Sure, you're wearing the weird belt and everything, but it is perfect. It is up to here. Everybody else is seeing VR normally like at the floor. They're like seeing cardboard. They've seen DX2. They have no idea what to expect. So even if we only bring it up to here, what they're going to experience is so much greater than they've ever seen before. It's going to be fine. Now, the other thing we've done, I don't think I said this, maybe I did because I've recorded this before, is we also then went to all the developers and said, hey, we're actually going to have somebody in the room talking in a headset. So tell us the pain points that you had in demos. Let us know the problems that you had so that we know how to talk around it and we can help the people do it, which to a bunch of the devs was a big relief because they're like, oh yeah, we never solved this problem. Like, this is a problem. So, okay. So we go in the next morning. I got some sleep, but I'm still a little, it's a lot of travel and a lot of weird energy. And we have to cut Google from here as well because the internet is not working. Now we've ordered the upgraded internet and they can't get it in time. So we're going to do 2 hours of demos and they're going to go through the whole trip. And at some point I remember watching some people from The Verge, Addie, and she was dancing and using the VR in the way that we would not acceptably say to use the VR. And I could see they were having fun. And I could see the people coming out and not getting explained to them. And they would ask me questions and I'd be like, not answering a damn thing. And I could just see them trying to talk about what they had just seen. And they didn't have the words for it. They were overwhelmed with the experience of what they had. Nobody was asking about resolution anymore. Nobody was asking about technology. They were talking about this thing where they reached in and they got feedback and they had an understanding. Because remember, if we start with the blue, where you don't have to do anything with your hands and you can just watch. And then we do Job Sim or Tilt Brush, right? And we have all the different demos are set up so that not everyone gets exactly the same. Like there's 3 demo tracks just in case one of the demos didn't work, but people are seeing like a lot of the same things, like the Tilt Brush and the Valve thing and everything. And they're all just like talking about like world changing and just blown away. Nobody's talking about the belt. Nobody's talking about any of the negative stuff. They're not even talking about like, I feel bad, anything else that they were told in that round trip of things. They're just blown away. And then noon comes, the embargo's lifted. And so like when you work on something, like when you work on a game or you work on technology, you often like kind of write the review that you want to see, or you write the review so that you can see like, oh, this is what the negative they're going to pull out. We should counter this. We should have words to talk about this. We should be able to figure a way to get around this. The reviews and the words that came out weren't like better than what I would have come up with. They were 100 times better. They were overwhelming. They were glowing. They were losing their minds by what they had just seen. Because this was all a surprise. I got to see this gradual movement to here. They were seeing it just out of the blue, unexpected, for the first time in this beautiful setting. And they got to sit on couches and write about it. We didn't even let them leave. They're like, oh, just... And that set of things came together that were such a disaster every step of the way. But somehow it all came together, and it wasn't just perfect. It was better than perfect. Just got me giddy. And I've never been giddy before, where I was just so happy and so excited that I was shaking. I was trying to show my phone to somebody because there was a review from somebody of like just absolutely glowing. Some big tech publication was just like, this was the greatest thing that they've ever seen in their lives. And I was just shaking and I couldn't even hold it. And they're like, what the hell's with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna have a heart attack or something. I'm losing my mind. So I had to go in a hallway, some service hallway down in the middle of Moscone Center and just scream for 5 minutes straight. And that feeling didn't really leave for days, but it did come down where I didn't have a heart attack and I could sleep. But that all came together. And that moment was one of my favorite moments, if not my favorite moment at Valve, of just all of that coming together and all that work that we had done. And it wasn't stuff I made, which is weird. Like I would think that it was to be my high moment would be the thing I made that I personally had a hand in making, but it wasn't. It was helping these other people make something, which I kind of learned something about myself that's okay. That's okay. That's okay to be that person that helps. But it was just like so overwhelmingly great. And then I remember we were flying home afterwards, and we were going to give a kit. We had so few kits. We had kits. They all were numbered. They were all for somebody. We had a kit that we had to give to somebody that we really wanted to get a kit. And Gus was scared to put it and check it in the luggage. So she just held it in her hands and we just kept smiling and laughing the whole flight back because we just couldn't believe that what we had worked on had pulled off and had worked. And then I remember at the last day of GDC, WeVR was like, hey, we're going to show this at Mobile World Congress next week. We're going to just get set up. And the engineers at Valve would think we're at first like, oh my God, no, like, hang on, this is got to be a controlled experiment. I'm like, no, that's the other team. That's what Oculus is doing. All theirs is restricted. Our little boy grew up. He's in college now. We can't control him. We'll see what happens. If it's not good, it's our fault. And we just started giving kits to everybody we could. And we let them go everywhere. Now, to be fair, one of the engineers actually ended up going down to VRLA just in case. It wasn't needed. It was fine. But we just started sending people to do demos and give demos and share it and share with other people and just try to be as open as possible. I would give a kit to anybody and just be like, just make cool shit. Like, I don't care where it goes. And people will be like, oh, hey, so, Oculus is giving us money. We're going to end up making. I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. Don't worry. It's just about making stuff at this point. It's just about getting it out there. It's just about like helping the ecosystem in the entirety and making stuff, sharing these experiences so everybody can see this and have an understanding. And so while in subsequent years, I think that Gabe was correct that Facebook supercharged the kind of ecosystem there in a way that inflated some sides of it and distorted it, and it's kind of hurt the market in a way. But I still think it's growing and it's still going forward. It just kind of like got ahead of itself, and now we'll come back. It still was just to be a part of that very first time of showing people that and seeing people's reaction, seeing people's just outright happiness and joy, and seeing that all come together and that whole team. Like I'm talking about like me here is me and Gus, and it was about everybody else, right? It was about everybody else. And then from there, it was about traveling and giving out people giving VR to people and going to things like going to IKEA's headquarters where Gus and I had shrimp and banana pizza. What the hell's with you Swedes? And IKEA has an entire hotel to themselves. It's the IKEA hotel on their campus. We were the only people there that night. We just left our doors open and yelled between rooms at each other because we were watching a Seahawks playoff game. But yeah, so that was like the whole VR thing was a really great experience, and getting to travel the world and do all of that was a really great experience. And I'm super thankful for that. But that moment at GDC when all of that work had come together. Oh, and Google later came, I don't think I mentioned this, and their lawyer is a big guy. He's a big guy. We later became friends because when we went on Jimmy Fallon, he was there with us as well, with the Skillman Hackett guys. We became friends. But that moment, he was mad because they were not in a lot of the press from that initial thing because the internet just didn't work. And I explained that to him, and I'm like, no, We'll get you in now that we have good internet. We'll put you back in and you'll be in all the press after that. We invited the press back to see it and we try to do all of that. But it's still like sometimes you have to make it where there's nothing negative. There's nothing negative you could say about that demo. And that meant ruffling some feathers. That meant removing some content. But I think it was the right choice because that launched that off there, right? And that was a really good moment. That was really fun. And again, a lot of other fun stuff, a lot of really smart people I got to meet through all of that. And it was a really great experience. And I love making games and I want to keep making games. And those are some of my favorite experiences over time. But just that moment at GDC. I really like going to GDC when we had our own little world there under the stairs. And yeah, it was fun.